The suggestion had started as a joke, at least, that's what I told myself. We had been sitting at the dinner table, my husband casually swirling the last bit of wine in his glass, his gaze flickering between me and the open patio door, where our neighbor's son was talking on his phone, leaning lazily against the fence. The summer evening was warm, the air thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and something unspoken. "You should try it," my husband had said, his voice light, teasing. I had laughed, shaking my head, dismissing it as nothing more than a playful remark. But as the words settled in the space between us, I felt something shift. A quiet pulse of something I couldn't name. And now, hours later, I was still thinking about it. The house had gone quiet, my husband having gone upstairs to shower, leaving me alone in the dim glow of the backyard lights. The warm night air clung to my skin as I stepped outside, my bare feet brushing against the cool wooden deck. The cicadas hummed in the distance, the faint murmur of a television drifting from a nearby house. And then, couldn't sleep? I turned my head at the sound of his voice. He was still outside, still leaning against the fence, but now his phone was tucked into his pocket, his gaze steady as it settled on me. I swallowed, my fingers tightening around the edge of the railing. Something like that. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth, lazy, unbothered. "It's a warm night." "Yeah." He pushed off the fence, stepping closer, his hands slipping into the pockets of his joggers. The motion was effortless, casual, but there was something about the way he moved that sent a slow ripple of awareness through me. "I was just about to head in," he said, but he didn't move. "Unless you wanted some company." My breath caught for half a second, my pulse kicking up just slightly. I should have said no. Should have laughed it off, turned around, gone back inside. But instead, I hesitated, the weight of the earlier conversation lingering in my mind. I exhaled, offering a small smile. Maybe just for a minute. He nodded, stepping onto the deck, the soft creak of the wood beneath his feet the only sound between us. The space between us was small now, smaller than it should have been, the night air pressing close around us. "So," he murmured, his head tilting slightly. "What did he say to you?" My stomach tightened. "What?" His smirk deepened, but his voice was easy, smooth. "Your husband. At dinner. I saw the way he looked at you. And the way you looked back." Heat curled low in my stomach, unexpected, unwelcome. "It was just a joke." "Was it?" The space between us shrank again. I swallowed, exhaling slowly, steadying myself. "It doesn't matter." He hummed, his gaze flickering over me, slow, assessing. "You're right." A pause, a shift in the air. "Doesn't mean you're not thinking about it." I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure what my voice would sound like if I did. The silence stretched between us, thick and unmoving, wrapping around the humid night air like a slow-rolling storm. The weight of his words settled in my chest, pressing down in a way I wasn't ready to acknowledge. I should have ended this conversation. I should have stepped back, let the night return to what it was before, calm, predictable, safe. But I didn't move. Neither did he. His gaze lingered, watching, waiting, his hands still buried deep in the pockets of his joggers, his body deceptively relaxed. But there was nothing casual about this moment. Nothing simple about the way the air between us crackled with something I couldn't name. "You didn't answer me," he murmured, his voice quieter now, rougher around the edges. I swallowed, exhaling slowly, keeping my expression neutral. "Because it's not important." He hummed, tilting his head slightly. "Funny. It feels important." My fingers flexed against the railing, my heartbeat steady but heavier now, thick in my throat. It was just a passing comment. He stepped closer. The deck creaked softly beneath his weight, a quiet sound swallowed by the night air, but I felt it, felt the shift, the space between us narrowing. My skin prickled, the warmth of the evening wrapping around me in a way that had nothing to do with the summer heat. "You ever wonder why he said it?" he asked, his voice dipping lower, slower. I exhaled through my nose, steadying myself. "I think you already have an answer to that." His smirk deepened, but his eyes held something else entirely. "Maybe," he admitted, voice smooth, teasing. but I'd rather hear yours. My fingers curled against the railing, my pulse ticking up despite my best efforts. It doesn't matter, doesn't it? Another step. Another inch of space stolen away, subtle but deliberate, his presence warming the air between us. I could feel it now, the weight of his gaze, the way it traced the curve of my shoulder, the line of my jaw, the part of my lips as I inhaled just slightly deeper than before. I should have stopped this. Should have turned away, ended the moment before it turned into something neither of us could take back. But I didn't. Instead, I let the silence stretch, let the tension coil tighter, let the words settle between us unanswered. He leaned in slightly, his breath warm against my skin. Tell me to leave. My throat tightened. I should have. I didn't. A quiet exhale. A flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Thought so. The words sent a slow, aching pull through my stomach, my breath catching, my fingers tightening against the railing. The sound of the night seemed impossibly loud now, the distant chirp of crickets, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, the faint hum of traffic from a few streets over. But beneath it all, there was only this. Only him. Only me. And the sharp, undeniable fact that this moment wasn't one I could ignore anymore. He shifted closer, and I felt the warmth of him before I could think about what it meant. The air between us was charged now, thick with something we had both been pretending wasn't there. My fingers curled tighter around the railing, my breath slow, measured, even though my pulse was anything but. Tell me to stop, he murmured again, softer this time, his voice a quiet challenge. I parted my lips, inhaling, but nothing came out. His smirk deepened, just slightly, as if he already knew the answer. The night stretched on, the weight of his presence pressing into me, his nearness something I was hyper-aware of now. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself, but he didn't move away. Instead, he let the moment settle, let it become something undeniable. A flicker of movement, a slow shift, the barest graze of his fingers against my wrist, a whisper of contact that sent a sharp awareness down my spine. My breath hitched, my skin warm despite the cooling air around us. This is dangerous, I murmured, my voice quieter now, the words barely more than a breath. His gaze didn't waver. Some things are worth the risk. The pulse in my throat ticked faster. The space between us felt almost non-existent now, the edge of something impossible to take back hovering just between us. I should have stepped away. I should have broken this moment apart before it became something neither of us could ignore. But instead, I stayed. And that changed everything.